couple of years ago, when I already had my Canon M50 and my Canon 90D, I was trying to figure out how to upgrade, like different camera, different lenses. So I asked a question to one of my fellow YouTubers.
Okay, Dan's asking, if you had to use one camera, what would it be? For me, it would be the EOS R and 15 to 35 right now.
So then I had been doing a lot of thinking and I decided to get a Canon EOS R. But for what concerned the wide-angle lens, all I had was my 10 to 18 millimeters, like here. Then recently, I'd been considering the RF 16 millimeters, but then when I went to the store and I kept thinking, and I don't know, that wouldn't have been an upgrade for me. So I just got a new camera, my Canon R6, a new computer, so I can edit these files. But I still needed a wide-angle lens with a decent aperture so that I could get, when needed, a little bit of shallow depth of field, and also that I could use at night. And the RF 16 millimeters, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of videos and I make it short. I just wanted an L series lens. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the RF 15 to 35 millimeters because of its price, like $3,000, man, or something like that. But I got something very similar. It's the EF 16 to 35 f2.8 version 2, or Mark 2. Anyway, it's this. I'm gonna put it on my R6 right now. 1 second. And here it is, the Canon EF 16 to 35 millimeters f2.8 version 2. And I'm only using one light here, my Godox SL60W, or yeah, and my LED sign and another light. Because right now I just want to get ready and go out and see what I can do with this camera, the Canon R6, and this lens. By the way, right now it's 35 millimeters and I can go wider down to 16 millimeters. And here it is at 16 millimeters right now. And I think this lens is awesome for vlogging, but also for studio shots. It's very different from my usual 35 millimeters point of view. And of course, I'm gonna make more videos about this, about how and when and where to use this lens, especially with the Canon R6 and the Canon EOS R. Without further ado, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna grab my Joby Gorilla Pod, my Rode Video Micro, and I'll see you in a bit. And this is the EF 16 to 35 millimeters f2.8 version 2 Mark II. I heard it both ways on my Canon R6. And to be able to use it on this camera, we need an adapter. And I'm using the regular Canon adapter to be able to use EF and EFS lenses on RF mount cameras. In this case, again, the Canon R6. What I like about this lens? Everything. I can start from its maximum aperture, f2.8, that gives me a little bit of shallow depth of field when at 16 millimeters right now. Here, it's a tiny little bit blurred, not much because of the nature of the lens. A wide-angle lens is never going to give you a very shallow depth of field, but I'm sure if I zoom in, things may change. I mean, things may change, but not the aperture, because this is a fixed f2.8 aperture. So it doesn't matter if I zoom in or out, the aperture will stay at f2.8 if I decide so. Now at 35 millimeters, you can see what changes, like a more shallow depth of field. Of course, if I need to take portraits, I'd rather use an f1.8, 1.4. That would give me a really buttery shallow depth of field, like very blurred. But I believe f2.8, if the background is far enough from the subject, is decently blurred. What do you think? Leave a comment down below, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's go back to 16. Here we go. Nothing changes. Just the depth of field a little bit. Why did I buy the Mark II and not the Mark III? Well, I know there's a difference in price. Like the Mark III is a little bit more expensive, and also a little bit bigger and heavier. So in my opinion, the Mark II is a better choice, at least for my needs. And by the way, I recently bought this Canon R6 and I've just updated the firmware, which is supposed to improve some of the features. I'm gonna make a separate video about it, but one of the features I'd like to test it like now. So this firmware update is supposed to track the subject also when wearing sunglasses, for example. Let's see if it's true. I don't see anything on the screen, so it better work. I'm gonna see you later in post and I'll tell you, and you'll tell me. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button and subscribe if you ain't already, and check the links in the description to see all my gear, stuff and things, my gear. So with this camera and this lens I can shoot 4K 60 and 120 frames per second in 1080 with the autofocus, and that's awesome. That's something I could not do with my Canon EOS R, because when you enable the 120 frames per second, what happens is, first of all, it's in 720 on the Canon EOS R, and second, you lose the dual pixel autofocus. Actually, you lose any kind of autofocus, but in this camera, no, you don't lose it. That's awesome. Another thing I would like to see is the stabilization, because this lens has no stabilization, but the camera has IBIS plus electronic stabilization. Let's see how it goes. Electronic stabilization off. It's just the IBIS is working right now. Tell me what you think about it. Electronic stabilization on. Tell me if you see any difference. Enhanced stabilization. It crops quite a bit. Stabilization off. Stabilization on. Enhanced stabilization. All right. Let's go home now, and I'm gonna wrap it up. 1 second. So this was just my first video with this awesome lens, the 16 to 35 millimeters, and I'm gonna make many more. I'm gonna use this lens a lot because I can use it for vlogging, I can use it for very wide cinematic shots, and also for photos, landscapes, and even some portraits, you know, because when it's at 35 millimeters, you get a decent blur in the background. And for what concerns vlogging, this setup with the R6, the 16 to 35 millimeters, the Rode Video Macro on the top, and everything on the Joby Gorilla Pod 5K. Yeah, it is a kind of heavy, but it's nothing that I can't handle. Yeah, I can definitely handle it. And besides, I don't usually shoot entire videos while walking. You know, the parts where I record myself while I'm walking are not many in general. I just prefer to stop, place the camera somewhere and say what I have to say, and that's it. That works for me. Another thing about the overheating, I haven't experienced that so far. I haven't tested it, but I have to say I've been shooting a lot in 4K, 4K 60, 120 frames per second, and it didn't overheat. But let's go back to this lens. The overall quality of the image, of the footage, is pretty good. Stabilization is great. I mean, even this lens doesn't have stabilization, but the camera has IBIS, and it seems to work pretty well. What do you think about it? Again, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And when you activate the electronic stabilization, it looks even better. It's just the enhanced stabilization, I don't like it, because number one, it crops too much. It seems like I'm using a 24 millimeters instead than a 16 to 35. And also, I don't know, there's something weird in the background when you use the enhanced stabilization. These were just my first impressions using this setup, the Canon R6, and this awesome lens, the EF 16 to 35 millimeters f2.8, which I have to use with the adapter, the Canon adapter, to be able to use EF and EF test lenses on our mount cameras. Of course, as I said in the beginning, the best option would have been the 15 to 35, the RF, but I've just bought this camera, a new computer. I couldn't really spend an extra $3,000. But for what I've seen today, I'm really happy with what I have. Seriously, I love this lens and I love this camera. Alright, I'm gonna go shoot more and organize my studio here with lights, stuff and things, and I don't know, maybe I'm gonna change something. But okay, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button right now, subscribe if you ain't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.